Testing.
Okay. Does my mic work?
Testing.
It's not working, is it?
Yes. Sometimes it takes a minute.
Testing.
Oh, okay. Oh, now I can hear myself. It's 6:03, and we are going to start the meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We have two remote attendees, Jonathan Foster and Davis Farr, who's our auditor.
Just one, and that's the company. He's from Davis Farr.
Oh, okay. Oh, now that explains it. Please, directors, speak into the mics so people can hear you, especially when it's being recorded. And will you please administer the roll call?
Director Balboni.
Present.
Vice President LaHue.
Here.
Director Jaffe.
Here.
Director Christensen.
Here.
And President Lather.
Here. The next item is agenda adjustments. This is for board members to announce any changes they want in the order of the agenda, or if they want to pull any consent items for discussion. Nope. You're looking intensely. Nope. Okay. So next we're at public comment. This is for items not on the agenda. And I see somebody standing up, so I think that there is a public comment.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I am going to hand the clerk of the board a courtesy copy of a petition for writ of mandate that I filed today against the district for a violation of CEQA regarding the unsightly condition of the advanced water treatment facility of the Pure Water Soquel project on Chanticleer and Soquel Avenue. I'm doing this because I want you to take me seriously in terms of what you will be doing later. Perhaps, hopefully, you will be agreeing to a stipulation, a settlement. But I want you to take me seriously. I and many people are concerned about the visual blight of the Advanced Treated Water Project. Your board members yourselves have brought this up, and there was supposed to be a committee that was going to meet and assess what you could do. I haven't heard that. So here's the problem. The Pure Water Project Advanced Water Treatment Plant component imposes significant visual blight to the disadvantaged Live Oak community. This community is not even in your service district. They have no way to even have you represent them. They have no way to even run for the board to try to make a change. And I remember right after the Pure Water Soquel project was initially approved, many people from the Live Oak community came, and they were very upset that this facility would be placed in their community. I also remember that a teacher had reached out to the district to try to see if maybe student art could be put on the fence to try to soften the blight. Well, nothing has happened. And so the EIR document promised trees and a great deal of screening with vegetation along the Soquel Avenue frontage road, and that is not happening. There is landscaping beginning along next to the building, the back of a building that nobody sees, but there's nothing to shield this, what I call a public nuisance and an eyesore. So I will hand this to your clerk. It is a courtesy copy. I cannot serve it, but I want to tell you that if you will please accept my settlement offer, I will dismiss this. If not, then this will be the face of things to come. Thank you.
Time is up. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? How about members of the board?
Yeah, I have something.
Okay.
So last meeting, when we heard an item on a variance for irrigation meter and for wells at Cabrillo, it really underscored that. And I think you said this in your letter to the public about the year and what's happened. There's transformations have happened. And with Pure Water Soquel, things are different. So I'm asking that, and part one of the ordinances still had water demand offset in it. So they're outdated. We have a different situation now with Pure Water Soquel. And I'd like to see the ordinances, policies, and resolutions looked at and examined again to see if they serve us well, because things have changed.
Is anybody else interested in saying anything?
For clarification, are you speaking kind of specifically about the ones from 1974 and?
I'm going to leave it up to staff.
Okay.
To
All right.
I mean, certainly anything that has water demand offset in it is obsolete.
Okay.
But I think even the reasoning behind our ordinances has changed. It's not as applicable now that there's Pure Water Soquel.
Yeah, I think that that's very forward thinking and really great prioritizing for 2026. Thanks.
Perhaps we even have time now that Pure Water Soquel is online now. There's a lot of transition going on, but I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so let's move on to consent items. I'm requesting public comment on the consent agenda up to 2 minutes, if anyone wants to speak on it. All of the consent items.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. It's a little difficult to see which pages are associated with which consent item. I respectfully request that the agenda packets revert to their former structure where it had the consent number or the item number posted on top of it. That was very helpful, and it's hard to see just going through with a page number what's there. But I want to point out, I think, very good news in consent item 4.2, no, it's not that one, it's 4.4, that the water consumption is the lowest it has been in 22 years. That's amazing. That is amazing. And let me see what page that was on. Well, I'm not seeing it now, and I don't want to waste my time. But that is really something notable. I also want to point out that, and that's page 10 on the finance. Page 15, I take note that you have a $147,613 landscaping project, but that does not do justice to what was promised to the public earlier. I also want to ask about the surplus land. Earlier, your board said that when Pure Water Soquel project went online, you would sell the Glenwood property. And I don't see that being any action. It's a lot of land that is not an exempt you could make some money on. That would be very good. And that's probably all the time I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. We don't need to do a roll call, do we? Oh, my gosh. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Next is 5.1, District Council. Do you have any reports for us?
Thanks, President Lather. Just a really, really brief one, an update on SB 707, which is a new law which amends the Brown Act. It'll take effect January 1st. The bill, in many ways, is, I think, the most substantial amendment to the Brown Act we've seen in a number of years. The bulk of the changes actually apply to larger agencies, so they won't affect us. However, there are important changes that do affect us. Relevant to the board, the bill modifies the grounds for you to attend a meeting from a private remote meeting location. So you'll remember we call it the AB 2449 or the COVID rules, which allow you to attend a meeting without listing it on the agenda for just cause or in an emergency. And it was always confusing as to, well, which one qualifies, and the rules are slightly different for both. This bill streamlines that, so those same rules will apply, but rather than having two different grounds, it'll just be just cause. And the emergency justifications have been moved under just cause. A couple more have been added. A reminder, if you do call in remotely under this one, you do need to leave your camera on for the full meeting, and we need to allow Zoom public comment. And there are numerical limits on the number of meetings you can appear remotely under that provision. Under the new rules, it'll be 2 times a year. Second important change is the SB 707 explicitly adds an ADA accommodation for directors. If they have a qualifying disability that prevents them from otherwise complying with the act, they can use that to participate remotely. You'll remember that ADA accommodation issue was actually added through an Attorney General advice letter, and this just ensures consistency in that it's all contained within the act itself. The last thing I wanted to note is that SB 707 will require that we provide you with a copy of the Brown Act. So you'll receive that from Emma in the next couple of weeks. That's where that's coming from. It's a big bill, and there's a more detailed summary that we'll send you by writing, but I wanted to provide just an initial preview and also a little transparency for the public. Thank you.
I have a question. I attended the class that LAFCO provided last week, and I could have sworn that they said that you can't Zoom in if you're on vacation.
That's right. So what the issue there is you cannot call in, and we have a new term for it. We call it the AB 2449 or Zoom. The bill has a new term, so I'll try to use that for consistency going forward. We're calling it alternative teleconferencing. So alternative teleconferencing, you're calling in from your home or another private meeting location without making that a public agenda location. It is accurate that you cannot not use alternative teleconferencing if you're just calling in for vacation. There is a travel exception under there, but it's only travel for a state or local agency. However, when we normally have folks who call in for teleconferencing on vacation, it's under the traditional teleconference rules. As a reminder, those require that we list the location you'll be calling in from on the agenda, and that the agenda be posted at that location during the 3 days before the meeting. That provision is unaffected by SB 707 and will still remain in effect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. There's 7 of them. I'm going to miss a couple, but yeah, it's a family emergency. It's a contagious illness. It's child or family care. It's travel for state or local agency. There's a new one for military service, and there's another one that I'm forgetting, but it'll be included in the written summary we send you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to, let me see. It says public comment will be taken once prior to consideration of all.
Six.
Fine.
Well, we're going to go to 6-1 now.
Okay. Okay, so we're on to business items. Is there public comment on the business items? So no, I do each one. Sorry, I got confused because I was looking at this saying that there was for reports. So I'll move on. 6.1, public hearing to consider variance requests from the district's individual metering policy for an accessory dwelling unit. Gerald O. Reagan, 207 Farley Drive, Aptos. Taj, you have a report?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Yes, so this, in your packet, there are several attachments. There's the board memo, and then there's the variance application that the applicant has submitted with a narrative justifying the variance action that you're being asked to consider. There's also the district's ordinance 25-01, which establishes rules and regulations for water service, and then the ordinance 74-55, which governs the variance process. And then the last attachment is a board memo from April of this year that was presented to the board as an informational item on various small ADUs and individual metering considerations there. So it is applicable and referenced in the memo. The applicant is in the process of building a 451 square foot ADU that is new construction, but is also attached to the home. The construction is not considered a junior ADU, which would be exempt from individual metering by law. Ordinance 25-1 requires, except where otherwise prohibited by law, that each new residential unit after August 20th, 2002, be supplied through individually metered service connections. And in this case, it's not prohibited by law to do so. The benefits of having a separate meter is accurate measurement of water use for each unit, equitable allocation of system costs. The applicant is also requesting a variance to not pay water capacity fees, which basically pay into the infrastructure of the district's distribution system. And then, of course, leak detection is elevated with separate metering. Referencing the April 2025 informational memo to the board, conversion ADUs, junior ADUs, and tiny homes on wheels are exempt from separate metering and fees under state law, while new construction ADUs do require separate metering and the fair share of water capacity fees. There have been several considerations since this year for other ADUs that are in a similar classification, and the board has consistently upheld individually metering for those applications or will serves. Or in some of those cases, they never came to you. They're administered at a staff level, and the applicants did install separate meters. Let's see. There is another consideration. I don't know if it applies in this instance, and maybe District Council can weigh in if needed. But Assembly Bill 1033 is titled Separate Sale of ADUs, allows cities and counties to permit certain ADUs to be sold separately from the primary residence as condominiums, and that certainly could generate challenges if these ADUs are not individually metered if that happens to be the case in the future. So the board does need to consider Resolution 74-55 and make findings. One is that there is granting the variance would not generate a special circumstance applicable to the property that would deprive it of privileges enjoyed by similar properties if ordinances were strictly applied, consistency with the intent of the district resolutions and policies, and no detriment to public health, safety, or welfare. And then the variance would not constitute a special privilege inconsistent with the limitations placed on other properties in the district. There are some fiscal impacts associated with granting of this variance. One, it would be not collecting the water capacity fee, which in this case is $4,623.67. And then also a meter drop-in fee of $544, and then the ongoing monthly service charge of $56 a month. That concludes staff's presentation at this time.
Thank you. I'd like to request the applicant to come to the podium and present their request for a variance.
So there is a narrative attached to the variance request that goes into a lot of detail. I don't know if you really want me to go into that right now. I took a look at the different resolution, or I took a look at the board's rules in terms of variance criteria that Taj spoke about. But I do have some comments that sort of summarize that, so maybe I'll go through it that way, rather than go through the longer narrative. First of all, good evening, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it. My name is Gerald O'Regan. Our home is at 207 Farley Drive. I'm respectively requesting a variance from the requirement to install a separate water service line for our ADU. Our ADU aligns with the district's goal of sustainable housing and responsible water use. A separate water use would cost us $40,000, and the reason for that, it's about $25,000 to trench into the street. Granting this variance will help make this project affordable without compromising water management goals. Our ADU is 451 square feet. I think it's important to emphasize it's very small, and it was intentionally kept that way to keep the costs down. It also has a very low fixture count, and we can talk about that if you would like, but it's a very low fixture count. And it's attached to the existing home. It was designed for an aging parent, again, to keep the costs down, to keep somebody living with us. And I think it's important to note, as Taj noted in the April 2025 memo, other ADUs such as JADUs, conversion ADUs, tiny homes don't require a separate water service. In additional remodels may not trigger increased that don't increase too big of a fixture count, don't require a separate service. So it's important to note that I think other ADUs receive this exemption. They can be up to, I think, 700 square feet. I could have that number wrong, but it's certainly more than where we are. And so these other ADUs can be much larger and still not trigger a separate water service. Other nearby water districts, such as the City of Scotts Valley, San Lorenzo Valley Water District, City of Watsonville, would not require a separate service. And I spoke to the City of Santa Cruz. They said they would be unlikely to require a separate service. And by the way, I'm not objecting to the water capacity fees. I'm fine paying that if that's a decision that the board makes. That's not what I'm objecting to. It's the $40,000 to install this system. That seems unnecessary, considering we're going to use very little more water. The estimated cost, like I said, is $40,000. This includes $25,000 for a new line for my property, the water main in the street, district fees and trenching. For a modest ADU intended to provide affordable housing, this extra expense seems pretty unnecessary. I think it's also important to note that because the ADU is so small, it's 451 square feet and attached to our house, in my mind, it meets the criteria that was set up for a junior ADU. So, you know, I feel like it really does meet that criteria because it's attached to the house and so small. In the variance request is information that shows the request meets the district's variance guidelines. And again, I'm not going to go into that in detail, but in my request, I list what the criteria is in Resolution 7455, Section 1.03, and then I provide rationale for each one of those. In summary, depriving my property of privileges enjoyed by similar properties doesn't seem fair. I feel like granting the variance aligns with the district's housing and conservation goals, and it doesn't confer or give us special privileges that others don't get. Again, because ours is, in many cases, ours is going to be much smaller than other ADUs that do get this privilege. So it just really puts us on an equal footing. Instead of a separate line from the street, I would like to use the existing line because the existing service provides enough water for the existing home and ADU. In addition, I think it's fair because it treats us the same as other ADUs in the water district. And it also meets the criteria really of a JADU. By granting the variance, you will support the creation of much needed affordable housing while upholding the spirit of the district's water conservation goals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. That's our property. The ADU is up in the right-hand corner and attached to the house, as you can see in the map. Yes, the reason we made it an ADU as opposed to a separate addition is because of an aging parent, and that was going to be a place that they could live. Yes. And then it's got a doorway going into the house so they can come and go into our house from the living room or come around from the side separately if they wish to do that. Yeah. Yeah, I know Taj mentioned that there were other people who came to the district and they didn't go forward. I can't even comment on that because I don't know anything about it. So, but if it would seem to me that one way to look at this would be square footage. Because again, these other ADUs that are exempt from this requirement can be 600, 700 square feet. And I'm not even sure conversion ADUs have an upper bound. I'm not sure. These folks over here might know, but it is certainly, much larger than what we have. And that's what it just kind of strikes me that just seems unfair.
Taj, what other ADUs have gotten exemptions that are bigger?
I'm not aware of any.
Unless it was a junior ADU.
Right, a tiny
the junior
home.
ADU, I wanted to clarify that because you keep saying it's the same, and it's not, because the junior ADU, you're not increasing the square footage of the building at all. You're taking a part of an existing square footage. So just clarifying that. And then I just have a question for staff after that.
Is that correct, Taj? I thought that it was an addition.
You might be referring to a conversion ADU, maybe?
I thought we'll explain a junior then.
Um,
I looked it up, and that's what it said.
So it's generally within the same footprint, but under the county's regulations, the JADU can increase the square footage by 150.
How much?
150. Okay. That's the increase total.
That's the county's definition. Does the water district have the same definition?
We're not a land use authority, so we default to the land use definition.
Are you getting ready to say something, or are you just
No,
reading?
I think Josh covered it. It's in the memo from April, and that might be what you're referring to, Dr. LaHue. Living spaces up to 500 square feet that have an efficiency kitchen and are contained within the walls of a new or existing single-family dwelling.
Also, yeah, and that's what it said on Google too, so.
I don't trust Google.
I read both.
Okay, well, thank you. Now is time to request or open the public hearing and receive additional public testimony on the item.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I go to a lot of many Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisor meetings, and I hear the ADU issue and regulations come up a lot. I think that it would serve you and these people well if you tabled this for tonight, because I don't think the definitions of it are correct. I have heard that I have heard discussed in Board of Supervisor meetings that a JADU could be up to 1,200 square feet. So I think you should get clarification officially from the County of Santa Cruz, not relying on Google. I don't trust it either, and help resolve this issue. And I also think that your board really needs to go back and take a look at your ordinances about ADUs and separate connections. I looked at Cal Green 4.303.2, which is meant to comply with SB 7. And it says if the buildings are separate, they need separate water meters. But this is not separate. So the applicant has said they're comfortable that there's plenty of water available through the existing service line. And in the interest of helping people house their parents and provide affordable housing, I think your board needs to revisit this. And unless these people are in a hurry, I think you should table it and get official definitions from the County of Santa Cruz Planning Department, land use officials, and take a look at your ordinance about ADU separate meters, because $40,000 is absurd. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no additional public members interested in speaking, right?
I can clarify the definition of a junior ADU if you wish.
Okay, thank you.
Straight from the county's website. It says junior ADUs involve creation of a new living unit, maximum 500 square feet, converted from within the walls of a single-family dwelling, including attached garages and other non-living spaces. Junior ADUs have an efficiency kitchen and a separate exterior entrance. A junior ADU may have interior access to the primary dwelling, but this is not required. Bathrooms can be separate or shared with the primary dwelling. And I believe the applicant asked the county whether this project could be considered a junior ADU, and the answer was no.
So I'll bring it to the board. Dr. LaHue has a question.
Yeah, I just, so Taj, I just have a question about is there any alternative to the piping all the way out to the street, the trenching and putting another line in there? Is there any, I don't know. Because that seems to be the most expensive part.
Could we see the floor plan that was up there?
Yeah. Mr. O'Regan, can you clarify if you required to put fire sprinklers in?
We were not required to put fire sprinklers in.
Thank you.
That has to do with distance to a fire hydrant. There's one nearby. I would, since I'm up here, I guess. I think the county no, I shouldn't.
Yeah, we're done with public
Right.
comment. Yeah.
I was
Did
just-
ask you, so that was confusing, but
If possible, I'd like to clarify the definition of a junior ADU. Okay, all right. I think there's something that's in addition to that.
Yeah, and I think I can clarify that. There is another table on the county's website that does allow, I think, up to 150 square foot of new square footage versus an existing. So that's in a different table. In some instances, the district has not since I've been at the district, not in the last 25 years, but created a bullhead service where you tee off of an existing service line and you don't go into the street. In this instance, that potentially could be a consideration if there's no fire sprinklers that are required. And if the existing service line could support both demands of the house and the new ADU.
and that would be at where the existing meter is, and then from there they would trench.
That's correct. It would be right at the curb or right where the existing meter is.
So it'd be towards the house from the existing meter?
It would be
a shared
before
service.
the existing meter. We'd have to excavate before the existing meter, put in a T, and then have a second meter right next to the other one. But it's fed off the existing service line, but not fed through the existing meter.
Gotcha. So it doesn't go all the way to the main.
Correct.
Is there a disadvantage to that? I mean, why is that not done?
Well, sometimes the size of the existing service is, not adequate, and having two dedicated lines. In this case, the fixture count is low, and it might be just fine. I know the pressure's high in this neighborhood. It's not, it's the fixture units. It's not fixtures.
Yeah, they count like 4 for some types of fixtures. But it's not 13 separate fixtures. It's,
Each unit, like a toilet.
I don't know what the numbers are.
It's in the uniform plumbing code. You look in there, and like a shower, I think is 3.
Correct.
It's a shower.
I think a single-family home is in the 30s, so. Yeah, we could ask the applicant what fixtures he has in there if you're interested in.
May I just respond also to the question that was about a single service line or if we split off? There has in the past been where it's a reliability thing when a customer or a connection wants a new service installed, that it goes to the main. Because if the service line goes out, especially if these ADUs are occupied by not a family member, in this case, it's a family member, but in non-family members, you may want to have a reliable water service. If one house needs to turn their service off, it does impact the other dwelling unit.
Yeah, and what I had suggested to supplement what Melanie said is that adding a separate meter next to it, bullhead is also known as that, you would have a separate angle stop. So there would be 2 angle stops if one needed to be turned off separately from the other. That's possible. But if there were something wrong with the single service line, then both residences would be out of service, out of water. That's what I think she was getting at.
it's not as reliable.
Correct.
Although, I mean, if they just didn't, if they weren't required to have 2 meters, they'd be in the same boat. As far as, so.
That's true.
It's not, I don't think it's that a big deal. The bullhead.
But it saves money to go out to the main. and
Right.
Tearing up the
But
street.
it's not hurting the residents in the house
I see.
to have that.
So a bullhead
Yeah.
doesn't have very many downsides, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. O'Regan, you can sit down. I don't want you to be tempted to talk.
Yeah.
And I think I answered before Director Balboni wanted to ask a question too.
Right, okay, so Director Balboni, will you continue?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the applicant for designing the ADU that's mindful of water conservation, and thanks for engaging with the district's process. Granting this variance would be a special privilege. Despite O'Regan's claims, waiving this requirement shifts the costs to the ratepayer and the district, and it creates unequal treatment under the existing rules. Policy sympathy is not a legal basis for exemption. Looking at our ordinance, there are no unique or exceptional circumstances, so it fails the threshold for a variance test. That said, I think this application highlights broader questions about how the district ordinance applies to new ADU configurations, as we've been talking about, including attached units with 13 fixtures. These are important policy questions that deserve thoughtful district-wide consideration rather than resolving them through an individual variance. I think an appropriate path forward is for the board to consider reviewing the ordinance in the near future while continuing to apply the current requirements consistently in the now.
Any other comments from?
Excuse me. This might be a example of what Dr. Jaffe was talking about, reviewing ordinances. I think that there's some room for some revision, I think, or reconsideration. I know we just looked at them a year or two ago, but things are changing. We have, it is a good time to do a more global review of that, but I don't know whether the applicant wants to table this, but at the moment, you can see that we're very reluctant to issue a variance on this because so many other customers have requested a variance too, and we have really good reasons for enforcing the ordinance that we have, but your situation brings up another challenge, and I think it's worth considering reviewing the ordinances. Also, I think Becky Steinbrenner.
Bruce, did you have something to say?
I agree with what Jennifer and Carlos both said. It's hard based on our current resolutions and ordinances to grant a variance. But I think that things have changed in terms of what the purpose of the ordinance was. And I think that it should be a high priority for us to review any ordinance affected by Pure Water Soquel being online. To me, one thing that I do think would require separate meters is if there were two different owners. And so that's one of the issues, is that in the future there could be a sale. It could become legal to sell ADUs in this county. It is, as Jennifer pointed out in April, that it is already legal in other places to sell ADUs. So it's a tough situation. I would have a hard time granting a variance, and yet our ordinances need to be reviewed quickly or in a timely fashion so that we can really examine what's the driving forces for those ordinances, and whether those driving forces still exist.
Okay, were you twitching at me?
Not until you're done.
Are you done? Did you want to say something else?
After you.
Oh, no, you can do that. I always wait to the
Well-
end if I have anything.
Okay, well, just, we did review this in April. And, made the decision at that time that because of the fact that you're adding square footage and because you do get a conservation signal by having your own meter. And as Taj mentioned, you find leaks easier. There's multiple reasons, especially if a property can sell and be owned separately. I mean, I think at that time, it would be very difficult to deal with that situation. So I guess I still feel like if you can sell a property separately from your house, it needs to have a separate meter. And I think the other benefits, including conservation, are still worthwhile. I do think if there's a way to make the cost of hooking up to the other line, like maybe you said, like a bullhead just ahead of where the meter is and having 2 meters where you don't have to trench all the way to the street and save some money. Mr. O'Regan even mentioned he'd be willing to pay the water capacity fees. So if we could work with them to see if there's if it's got adequate flow and if it would function well, that I think would be nice for us to try and help out with that part. So no, that's all I got. Go ahead.
Okay,
Could I respond? Because you want to be last?
sure, yeah, because I don't want to interrupt the flow.
Okay. So I just had a question, and this is, if there was to be a sale of the ADU, could it be a requirement at that time to have a separate meter? Or is that something that is not possible?
We can definitely look into that. I'm not sure, right here how we would structure that. But if the board directs us to, look at amending the ordinance, we can flesh that out and bring it back as an option.
Okay, well, I was on the selling or changing an ADU into a condominium, and I have a hard time believing that this particular site could even qualify, because I worked in the planning department. I try not to tell anybody, but, and I did permits, and you have to have specific construction to separate I'll say an ADU, but a condominium. There has to be an air gap. There has to be certain kinds of firewalls between them. There's a lot. When it's separate, I can see that happening. But especially in this case, I have a hard time. I think it's fine that they made a law that says you can attempt to, but I think it would be really difficult. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter, except I think we might want to look into that because we keep bringing that up. And some of them I'm like, okay, I could see that, but others, like this one, I can't. So.
Yeah, I mean, that comes back to whether we relook at a policy and say there might be some exceptions where there's no way it could become a separate dwelling that could be sold.
Right. Okay, so at this point, do we have a motion?
Yes, I would love to make a motion to deny the variance and direct staff to agendize ordinance 25-01 for a full rewrite.
I'm having a hard time with that.
Yeah, we can do it separately.
Maybe just a separate
Okay.
motion.
I'd like to make a motion to deny this variance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can we add in there that we'd want you to pursue the concept of the bullhead?
I don't know if that.
No.
Does that need to be in there?
No.
Or just staff direction, I don't know. I'd like to help out with that part.
We think we can administratively approve that if the applicant's interested in pursuing that option.
Okay, so we don't have to put it in there. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
I know. Any opposed? Okay, so the motion carries.
Second motion, I'd like to direct the staff to agendize ordinance 25.01. That's our old ADU ordinance for like a full, fresh rewrite sometime in the near future.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that's it for that one. Item 6.2, presentation and acceptance of annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year 2024-25 and appropriate funds for the capital facilities reserve.
So, good evening. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a scratchy throat tonight.
Oh, no.
But we have completed our financial audit and have prepared our annual comprehensive financial report for the period ended June 30th, 2025. This evening, we have our audit partner from Davis Farr LLP. His name is Jonathan Foster. He's here tonight to present our financial statements. I do want to go ahead and acknowledge the tremendous effort put forth by our staff member, Ryan Kinney, our supervising accountant. He completed the audit. We received an unmodified opinion, and he helped compile the financial statements. So I'll let Mr. Foster present. Thank you.
You can rest your voice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie. Go ahead and share my screen. Oh, somebody else is sharing at the moment.
Can you try now?
Yes, let me begin the slideshow because it tends to switch screens. Okay, it should be present now. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Leslie. My name is Jonathan Foster. I was the partner from Davis Farr overseeing the audit engagement. I'd like to thank the board today for allowing me to take the time to share a little bit about the work we do, some of the highlights from the audit. A little bit of background. We did start our preliminary audit procedures in June, and we performed our final audit procedures in 2025. As a result of the procedures performed, we issued an unmodified audit opinion. What that means is that as auditors, we did not have to make any modifications to the audit opinion, and this is actually the highest level you can achieve in the form of an audit opinion. I'm going to take a moment to speak a little bit of the areas of our audit focus. We do substantively test all material assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenses. So what does that mean? It means we reach out directly, for example, your cash in the bank, your long-term debt. We reach out directly to the financial institutions involved and get information directly from them for us to provide as audit evidence. Secondly, there was a new accounting standard that was required to be implemented in the current year, GASB 101 compensated absences. You may have noticed within the audit opinion, there is a new paragraph this year titled Emphasis of Matter. Anytime there's a new accounting standard, we're required to communicate that within the audit opinion letter and incorporate that in our audit procedures. And I prepared a slide to explain some of the differences in the prior year and the current year of the accounting standard over compensated absences. Lastly, every year, in addition to our standard audit approach, we are required to do an unpredictability test. This year, we chose to select a sample of bank reconciliations, reperform those bank reconciliations, and make sure they are performed in a timely basis. So I'm happy to note that there were no exceptions as a result of this unpredictability test. I'm sorry, I meant payroll testing. For payroll testing, we selected a sample of employees and recalculated their pay rates in accordance with approved pay schedule for the district. A little bit of background on GASB 101 compensated absences. What has changed from the prior year to the current year? In the prior year, you were just required to report a liability based on what would be paid out to an employee upon termination. That has changed going forward across all government agencies. What has happened now, in addition to accruing a liability for what is required to be paid out in cash to the employee, you're required to perform an estimate of what may be used in the form of vacation or sick time for that employee. So now it is cash plus an estimate of estimated use of available sick or vacation time, plus applicable payroll taxes. And the result of this is a slightly higher increase in your compensated absences liability from the prior year. I have some excerpts directly from your financial statements just to point out some of the significant changes from the prior year to the current year. Overall, your total assets did increase. You'll notice in two areas there was a significant increase over cash. Cash was a combination of a couple factors due to a positive change in your net position, meaning positive net income, and the issuance of some new debt contributed to these increases in your cash investments. And secondly, you'll see a new line item on this page of your financial statements titled Net OPEB Asset. And I have included a slide in the presentation explaining further why your OPEB obligation has now flipped to an asset from a liability. The second half of your statement of net position displays your liabilities and your net position, otherwise known as equity. The significant change in your liabilities is mainly due to the issuance of new debt, additional proceeds from your WIFIA loan, and new proceeds from your SWIC loan. In addition to that, accounts payable had a significant increase, and this is due to the timing of invoices, mostly capital related, and that's a fluctuation that's expected depending on the timing and receipt of those invoices the contractors perform. Lastly, on your statement of net position, you do have a healthy balance at the moment, increased from $194 million up to $210 million. One thing I did want to point out is that your net position is made up of three components. The first is your net investment in capital assets. The second, a restricted component, which is available for capital projects, and an unrestricted component, which is available for the rest of your operations. Now, while $210 million seems like an extremely large number, I do want to point out that that first number, your net investment in capital assets of $173 million, that is equity in the ground. But those are your capital assets net of the related debt. So that is not equity that is available to use for operations. So I do like to point out to boards that although there's a number of $210 million in net position, that $173 million is essentially money in the ground in the form of your capital assets. The next slide demonstrates your statement of revenues and expenses in net position, otherwise known as your income statement. You did have a significant increase in operating revenues due to changes in the rate structure for water service charges. And I did want to point out, although your net income before capital contributions did show a significant increase, your overall change in net position was significantly lower than the prior year. You'll see that line item, capital grants. In the prior year, the district recognized approximately $38 million in capital grants compared to $2.4 million in the current year. So there was significantly less total change in net position, but I did want to point out that on the operating income side of things, before these capital grants, the district did demonstrate an increase in that net income. I prepared a few slides as well on some of the significant footnotes that as auditors we feel is important to communicate to the board of directors. This year, note 4, capital assets, you'll see a significant disposal of construction in progress. Now you are required to footnote the reason when items move out of construction in progress and not into service. You are required to footnote the reason behind that. So you'll see a new footnote this year on what that disposal is. Now that $1.1 million disposal is not actually a cash outflow of the district. It was based on an estimate in the prior year that was subsequently revised based on contractor invoices. and the cost of your CIP projects had to be adjusted. So again, this is not a cash outflow based on this footnote, but rather the revision of an estimate based on contractors' estimated invoices. Last couple of slides, I did want to speak a little bit about your pension and OPEB obligations. I took an excerpt out of your pension footnote that displays your proportionate share of the pension liability and changes in your estimated liability based on changes of the discount rate. Now, this information is received directly by CalPERS. It is not given to us by the Water District, nor is the information prepared by the auditors. So you'll notice there was a change in your reported net pension liability from CalPERS. In the prior year, it was $7.8 million, and that has dropped down to $6.6 million. A combination of the performance of the money invested with CalPERS grew at a much higher rate than the liability grew in the period reported by CalPERS, and your proportionate share of your plan, meaning you're part of a cost-sharing plan, that you have a proportionate share you're responsible for, there's a slight decrease in that helped contribute to the decrease in your overall net pension liability. And lastly, I wanted to speak a little bit about your OPEB obligation. Within your footnote is an increase, a chart of the changes in your total OPEB liability and your planned fiduciary net position. This information, again, is provided to us by a third-party actuary employed by the district. So your total OPEB liability, you notice that estimate actually decreased, dropped from $7.2 million down to $7.1 million. Now the planned fiduciary net position, meaning the cash available to pay for benefits, that increased up from $6.1 million to $7.4 million. So because of this change, meaning your assets of the plan are greater than the total liability of the plan, you now have a net OPEB asset. So in layman's terms, the plan is essentially fully funded at the moment. Now, I do caution you that things can change year over year, depending on the market and healthcare trends, which is why I want to demonstrate two more charts that are within your OPEB footnote that are required disclosures in the financial statements. Now, your actuary uses a discount rate, which is essentially the estimated rate of return on your investments of 6.4%. Now, if that were to increase by a percent to 7.4%, that asset is expected to approximate $1 million. And if that were to decrease down to 5.4%, it flipped back to a liability of approximately $456,000. Now, that second chart shows differences in changes in healthcare trends, meaning if there's an increase in the assumption from the actuary, that again, that asset of $294,000 would flip back to a liability of $592,000. And rather, if there was a decrease in healthcare trends from the actuary's estimate, that liability, that OPEB obligation would flip back to a higher asset of approximately $1 million. So I do want to point out that it is good news that your plan is essentially fully funded, but depending what happens out there in the market and in healthcare costs, it can change very quickly. So putting all this information together, what happened? I'm happy to report that finance staff was prepared for the audit and responsive to all our inquiries. So again, I did want to thank Leslie and Ryan for the hard work they put in being prepared and responsive to our inquiries to complete this in a timely manner. Anytime there's a new significant accounting standard, it can be a heavy lift, and we did have various meetings to make sure it was properly implemented and supported an unmodified opinion, which was a result of our audit procedures. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and open it up to the board for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jonathan. So I don't know if the board has any questions on the financial statements that they'd like to ask of Jonathan while he's still with us. But the other piece that we probably still need to talk about is that capital facilities reserve.
Do I need to do public comment first, or?
It's up to you. As long as we take public comment before we end the item, we're okay.
Okay, you have to have specific questions for,
I do have one, actually.
okay.
So if we still keep putting the same amount into our OPEB obligations each year, despite the fact that it may be fully funded or next year might be slightly below, right?
We do, we continue to fund the real cost of it, meaning what we're obligated to pay for our retiree health care. We continue to fund that. But that aggressive pre-funding that we were doing before, we'll probably go ahead and divert that to the pension side now so that we can bring our pensions up to a fully funded status.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan.
So I will kind of talk to you a little bit about that capital facilities reserve. As Jonathan pointed out, we did have a gain in unrestricted net position this year. A lot of that gain, however, is due to kind of the ins and outs of money coming in for Pure Water Soquel that needs to be paid out for Pure Water Soquel. So it's not really necessarily all available to us. Thank you, Melanie. We have not put any money in the capital facilities reserve for quite a number of years now because we have had no unrestricted net gain in our non-restricted gain in net position. We also have not utilized the fund very heavily in the last few years. So my recommendation to you would be to consider funding it with a modest amount, definitely under 500,000 probably. What I typically see in annual expenditures that qualify for funding from that program would be somewhere around 250,000. So if you wanted to fund, say, a year's worth of expenditures under that plan, you could go through the 250,000 mark. You could go lower. We haven't utilized it quite as heavily as we thought in the past, so it just depends upon how the board wants to allocate those funds, if any.
Okay, so at this point, I think we need to get public comment.
Thank you. Becky Steinbrenner, I hope you feel better, Ms. Strom. Thank you for making the effort to come in to explain this evening. I think that it needs to be explained why the district can continue to collect water capacity fees, and it's now over $3 million, but there are no projects that are earmarked for the use of that money. It doesn't seem like good practice. I also don't think that it is good practice or legally defensible that the district has increased rates and fees to support basin sustainability by the Pure Water Soquel project for 2 years, and the project has not been online. It is now online. But I think that you really need to take a good look at how you use the money, how you charge the ratepayers. The Quail Run tank is still not built. Why isn't it being supported with some of the water capacity fees that is meant to support capital projects for improved service? I think there are some real problems here, and I hope that the ratepayers will take a good look at this. Thank you.
Okay, so I will now close the public comment period and open the floor for director discussion and questions.
Can I make a clarification? The current water capacity fee no longer collects on the marginal component. It's only the buy-in. Thank you.
Carla, you wanted to talk.
I was asked where the $500,000 would come from.
It would come from the gain and unrestricted net position that we posted.
Oh, from the investments, you mean?
There are some from investments. There's some from the SWIC loan disbursement. Some of that's got to go out to Pure Water Soquel costs, but some of it is also for costs that have already been incurred. So there are some funds available there. Again, I wouldn't probably go as high as 500,000, but that is an option.
And then, how do you envision it would change as the Water SoCal project runs a year at full, full capacity
In terms of,
expenses?
so what we have been doing over time, and it's on your monthly finance status report, is we have set aside funds that we have gathered for basin sustainability. And now as Pure Water Soquel is online and we're paying Jacobs to operate the facility, those funds are now going out in excess of what we bring in every month. So it's good that we had a little bit of a cushion that we gathered ahead of time, because we are now expending more than we bring in on a monthly basis.
Do we have enough cushion there then?
We will until the next rate study, yes.
Okay, good. That was a big question.
Seems like, we don't, the fund is for capital improvements to keep things running and things that need to be fixed and keep our infrastructure. So I think while we have the opportunity, we should add to that fund. But I have to go with our financial person's recommendation. So find a year's worth would be fine with me. 250,000. I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts.
Some of the things that we've paid for from that fund in the past have been the booster station upgrades at Fairway and Aquaview, and the chlorination upgrades. So there are these projects that aren't necessarily big capital improvement projects like a tank or a new treatment facility, but there are a lot of maintenance projects that we sometimes don't budget for because we don't anticipate the need right away.
I like to think of it sometimes as a fund to help our operating facilities have capital improvements performed. Not necessarily a new infrastructure. $250,000 really doesn't go far when we're installing new pipeline projects, but $250,000 does help the facilities, and it can go a long way with Nick's department.
I'm really glad to hear that, because it seems like that's where a lot of the unexpected expenses that has to cover.
Smaller ones.
Or unexpected upgrades, repairs.
Are there any other comments by any other board members?
I'll just make a motion then. Okay, how about
Yes,
that?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we add $250,000 to the capital facilities reserve from the unrestricted net position.
We're just supposed to be doing a motion to accept the comprehensive annual financial.
Don't I need
Well, we couldn't add to it.
Also provide the
Well, we have to know we
to
have
do
the
that
money.
too, right?
We could, we didn't need a motion. We certainly can have a motion. But Director Hugh, if you're comfortable, would request that the motion's added to include accepting the annual audit.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, do we need to know that we have the money to put aside, or? Okay.
All right, so
hear
to
that.
clarify though, so the motion is to accept the comprehensive annual financial report, which was done well, and I really appreciate the staff's consistency and always getting an unmodified opinion that the books are done well. And then to add 250,000 to the capital facilities reserve.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Motion passes unanimously. Now we're at item 6.3, which is the annual election of vice president by board of directors.
Thank you. And I just want to add, thank you very much, Leslie, to you and Ryan for helping to prepare the audit and working with Davis Farr and doing everything that you do every day. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and tee up item 6.3. Obviously, this is a very common one at the end of the year, which is where this is a time that we agendize for the board to select a vice president. As you know, in the past, we've typically done this in different forms and fashion. Most recently, since 2017, the board has voted to discuss and vote on a vice president for that incoming year, and then the president would be seated by whoever was selected as the vice president last year. We recently formalized that. It was just done by a board motion in 2017 and is now in our policy 10007 for board officers. Tonight, obviously, we're asked that the board consider and nominate a vice president, and then we recommend that once the appointment is made, it would go into effect at the conclusion of this meeting, and then the vice president at the beginning of the January meeting.
I'd like to make a nomination. Rochelle, first, thank you for serving as president this year. Thank you. And I'd like to nominate Carly Christensen as the vice president for next year.
I'm in favor of that too. Are you in favor of it, Carla?
It'll be an election year. So that might be a little.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So Carla Christensen will be the vice president next year.
Congratulations.
It's your life. We like having you.
Oh, I did forget public comment.
Oh, right.
That's a good point. I also missed who seconded.
It was Tom.
Thank you.
Did you have any comment? Okay, good. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so we'll go on to the next. I got so excited.
I did. So I'll go ahead and tee this one up. Emma was going to, but she also has a little tickle in her throat. So I'll go ahead and thank you, Emma, for
Should I
preparing.
still say 6.4?
Sorry.
Consider board member appointments to committees and organizations as the next item.
We are excited, aren't we?
are.
Thank you.
Yes, good idea.
Thank you for that tee up, and excuse me for jumping in. Item 6.4 obviously is another one that we often do in December, and it just sometimes depends on if we have committees that need board consideration for appointment. Tonight, we have two committees that we're requesting the board nominate and appoint, specifically the Public Advisory Committee, which is one of the district's committees. That one currently had a term for, we appointed in December of 2023, and it ran through December of 2025. So we're looking for board appointments for the next term, which would go January 2026 through December 2027. Currently, the board members that are serving on the Public Advisory Committee are Director Carla Christensen, Director Jennifer Balboni, and Dr. Tom LaHue has been sitting as the alternate. The other committee that we are asking for board appointments are for the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Agency. Again, that's the JPA that is comprised of 11 board members from Central Water District, the City of Santa Cruz, the County of Santa Cruz, Soquel Creek Water District, and then 3 private well owners. Our current board members are Director Carla Christensen, Director Bruce Jaffe, and Director Jennifer Balboni as the alternate. Appointments on this committee are for a one-year term. So we last appointed on December 3rd, and it ran through December of 2025. We're currently asking for appointments to serve on the MGA for the calendar year of 2026. I think that serves as my staff memo.
But what about Zone 5 and Aqua JPIA?
Sure, good
That's
point.
separate?
Those were just more for transparency and just awareness. We included those. Those currently are not being asked for appointments. Just some things to note, those appointments currently we don't need to address at this time. The only new one that we probably want to point out, as you mentioned, we have members that are already sitting on the Aqua JPIA and LAFCO. As described in our memo, it's Director Christensen for the JPIA and Director Lather for LAFCO, Director Balboni for Zone 7, and a new committee that's been created is actually a local chapter of CSDA. And that was formed, it's a chapter that has not been created here locally. We do belong to the parent organization of the California Special Districts Association, and a new local chapter was formed, and Director Lather was appointed president for that for this year. So we just wanted to kind of incorporate that. There's no action needed on any of those committees.
Thank you. So I would like to ask if there's any public comment before I forget. Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments, or I'm closing the public comment period and opening the floor to the directors for discussion. Do you have any items you want to discuss?
Well, I'll comment. I'd love to be on the MGA, but I understand that there might be people that are more senior than me that would like it, and that would be fine. I'm fine to step down for the public advisory, but I've enjoyed it so much. It's so much fun. And for the Zone 5 flood control, I do love going to that, but it's very time consuming. It's part of the supervisors meeting. So the county supervisors sometimes can go on for hours, and I'm sitting there for hours. And then the Zone 5 meeting is seriously never been more than 10 minutes. So it's quite stressful. So if anyone wants to take that over, but I'm also happy to serve on that. So just my comments. They do have a specific time on their agenda, but has it ever happened at that exact time? Maybe once in this past year. They try.
Okay, do we have any motions? I mean, there's 3 motions.
Is there anybody else that?
Chair?
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do any of those. I used to be on the MGA, but I did put many years in. So if you guys want to keep doing the MGA, that's okay.
I'd like to keep going for at least another year. I feel like I'm just getting back into
I was there from the beginning, so it's fine. So you guys, and you still want to be the alternate, so. Okay, so maybe that's easy. What about you, Rochelle?
I'm not going to arm wrestle anybody for any of these. LAFCO's taken a lot of my time.
Well, it sounds like both Jennifer and Carla are kind of ready to step down from the Public Advisory Committee. Is there anybody else that wants to step in? I'll be happy to be part of it. I'm an alternate now, so.
You wanted to step down.
Yeah, well, I thought. It's like
Public
I
Advisory.
could go alternate on it. Participate if you want to.
Okay, so Jennifer, did you want to be the chair?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, so let's have a motion. I can make a motion for Jennifer to be the chair, Tom to be the vice chair, and Carla to be the alternate for the Public Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
Okay, we can just vote on that separate, right? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that one carries. Now we're at the one that,
I'll make a motion that the MGA stay as it was with the same members.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Motion carries. And then do we have to do a motion for the other committee appointments? It just says if desired, so we can just not do that. Okay. Okay, well, at this point, we are going to go into the closed session. Public members may, what, I know. Public members may provide comment for up to 2 minutes prior to the closed session.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. You will be considering in closed session an offer that I have made, and I think it's a very reasonable offer. I think it is very feasible, and I think it would lend a great deal of transparency and public accessibility to information. I'm not asking much. I'm not asking much. But I'm doing so for public benefit. And I want you to take me seriously. And that is why I have filed this lawsuit against the visual impacts of the advanced water treatment plant. Because I want you to understand that if you will agree to what I have proposed, which is not asking much, it will not only provide a better level of information, it will provide public transparency, accountability, and I will go away. Now, that's got to mean a lot to you. But I will not go away if I feel like there is still something that is awry. And I really, really want you to accept the conditions that I have offered anew. I have whittled it down. It's not much. So please, help the people understand what is now before us with this project. Help the people understand, for example, there was a man hosing something down for a long time yesterday at the project in the area of the treated water. How do we find out? Thank you.
Sorry, your time is over. Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask public members to exit the meeting room. I will wait for the board clerk to tell me when the audio video is turned off.